So this video is just an introduction to feeding. We're going to talk separately about how you can support your partner with breastfeeding and a little bit also about bottle feeding. But there's a few things that you need to know no matter what you're doing that are going to help you understand the whole thing. So first of all, breastfeeding can be really hard, but breast is considered best because of the extra nutrients and the extra goodness that it gives to baby in all sorts of different ways. Now, breastfeeding may not be possible. If mum's with the baby, then the vast majority of women can breastfeed. However, some can't, or for instance, if you're a couple of guys, obviously that's not an option. So you'll be either bottle feeding exclusively, breastfeeding exclusively, or some people do obviously a mix. Most mums are able to breastfeed eventually. Obviously that's not everyone, but if you sort of stick with it, keep going with it, most women can do it. But that doesn't mean that it's always necessarily the right thing. It might mean you need to mix it up a bit, but we're going to talk about those things separately. So for now, I just want to talk to you about a few of the basics of feeding, and this is going to be relevant whatever you're doing with your baby, because it's really important to understand how the basic mechanics of feeding work. So I've got a doll with me and I'm going to show you how to do it. So basically what I always used to think was that the baby would basically suck on the end of the nipple like this, and sort of suck the milk out of the nipple. But actually that's not what happens. What happens is that baby is going to take a big gape like this, like that, and they're going to get a real mouthful of breast. So not just the nipple, but the areola, the bit around the nipple as well, and get as much of the breast in their mouth as possible. That's called the latch, which we've already probably heard talked about. So they're going to get a big mouthful of breast, and then instead of sucking the milk out, what actually happens is the nipple elongates when it's in their mouth and hits the roof of their mouth, so it hits the top of their mouth, and then they lap the milk out of the breast. So it's like that, and they actually lap the milk out rather than sucking it out. So a really common mistake is that people think that they're going to suck the milk out of the end of the nipple, but actually it's much more about getting a really, really good latch. So that's obviously relevant for breastfeeding, but it's also going to matter when we talk about how to bottle feed as well. So there's basically a couple of other things that are really, really useful to know. Now, I've got a glass of water here that I'm going to use to demo. So basically, if you imagine that the baby has the breast in its mouth and it's trying to drink off the breast, basically the baby is trying to get itself an angle so that it can tip its neck so that it can swallow the milk. Now, obviously, if it can't move its neck, it can't do that. So if I try to drink this glass of water, if I can't move my neck and it's just stuck there, I can't drink it, whereas I have to have the movement in my neck to be able to drink it. So if you think of like the classic TV ads where someone's like drinking their drink like that, it's the same for a baby with breastfeeding. So, or bottle feeding. So yeah, it's the same breast or bottle feeding. So basically, when you're feeding a baby, the breast or bottle, you don't want to hold the neck tight so they haven't got movement. You just need to just get light support with the palm of your hand so the baby has lots of movement with its neck and is able to do it. So often when people are starting to breastfeed or struggling with breastfeeding, the natural tendency is to push the baby and hold the baby. Same with bottles. It might be like you're trying to hold the bottle and push the baby, but you need to make sure the baby's got lots of movement in their neck so that they can find the right way to do it. And that's not a natural instinct for us because we feel like, we want to sort of move them towards it or make them do it. The other thing to show you is basically, rather than putting a nipple or a bottle into their mouth, because of the thing that I was saying before about getting the gape and getting that latch and going like that, the way that you get a baby to do that is they say nose to nipple. So if this is a nipple, imagine, or a teat, you're going to put it sort of just tip of their nose, just below up here, and then you let the baby do the work. So you just put it here and they just can go, and they can get that big gape. If you put it in like this, then that's going to cause problems. So it's about popping it about nose or about here and then let them do the work. So these are things that are relevant to breastfeeding or bottle feeding, but it's good to know how feeding works. So it's not about putting it in there. It's not about just a little thing. It's about a big latch, and that's how babies are going to feed. So that's going to be relevant in both the next videos, and I wanted to share that from the start. So next couple of videos, we're going to talk about supporting your partner with breastfeeding and some more details of that. We're also going to be talking about bottle feeding and a few details of that. So depending on what you're doing, you might want to watch one of those or both of those. And there's also a bonus video with the perspective of a few guys and their experiences of breastfeeding. So you can watch those in the bonus section afterwards. For now, the next video is going to be on breastfeeding. So if you're going to plan to do that, you can go ahead to that.